Hello, my name is Moses Macias, and this is my story. So I want to start with my testimony saying I was born with three birth defects. I was born with spina bifida, cleft lip, and hydrocephalus. Now, each one of those can kill you on their own, and they're very dangerous to have. And a lot of the kids that are born with this, they die at a young age. And I was born with all three. Now, fortunately, I ended up living. When I was born in '88, and being in the hospital in the '88 was a little bit different. A lot of times, when you guys go in the hospital, it's real nice and it's real neat. But back then, you'd be like borderline human experiments. They'd molest you, rape, kinds of crazy stuff that would happen on you. They would overdose you on drugs. A lot of medical abuse that would just happen, and you would go through that, in your life. And that was mainly the '80s, the '90s, and early 2000s that I would experience these type of things. And so when I was born with there's like the nurse that pulled me out and had all these. She had blood all over her hands, and she looked. My gallbladder was sticking out in my back, and so my gallbladder was right there. And she looked. My face was badly disfigured, and she was just shocked because her blood, everything. She didn't know what was going on. Normally you have a baby and the baby's born normal. Might have a thing or two that's kind of wrong with it, but she didn't understand what was going on. So they had got me and they took me away from my mom right away. So when they had done that, my mom was sat alone for 2 hours straight, just by herself. Like imagine you had your baby and for 2 hours straight, like you don't know what happened to your baby. And then they give her a call and say, "Well, your son's probably gonna die." That's kind of like the first thing she heard. And like he's got spina bifida, he's got hydrocephalus and cleft lip. So they were kind of explaining to her everything. And so right away she started praying, and unfortunately I was born with a praying mother, praying grandmother, praying family. And so she was just praying to God, save my baby, save my baby. And so they go into surgery. And they're like, we don't expect the baby to be alive to make it. I go through surgery, I end up making it out alive. And so they're like, all right, we're gonna have to have another surgery, in a couple of months or whatever how many days. So they put me in an incubator for 18 days. So for like 18 days straight, my mom didn't get a hold of me, did nothing. She couldn't like touch me or anything like that. So it was very devastating for her. And so then I have another surgery. All my surgeries right now are life and death surgery. I'm having ear infections, different type of infections, just fighting it off because the skin on my back, it was open, so you can see my muscle, you can see everything, and you can see my spinal cord was literally dangling from my back. So they're like, well, he's clearly gonna be a vegetable, being paralyzed, a vegetable state, just mentally disabled. There's kinds of things that's gonna happen to him because just looking from the outside, they're like he needs a miracle, and we're just doctors. And so they put my spine back in the spot. They put my gallbladder back in the spot. They do all that, and then they have surgery on my face, and they do that. And then they gave me a shunt for my head, so the fluid won't poison my brain. So I did all these surgeries like the first few couple of years. It was just surgeries after surgery, infection after infection. It was just a lot of life and death situation. Now I really don't remember only so much of this stuff, and so some of this stuff doesn't really affect me like you would think because when you're a kid, you really think nothing of it. It's just your normal when you're born in that situation. But I would later on, because of these things, I'll be treated differently. People wouldn't treat me like a normal person. They would disrespect me. They make fun of me, and they would treat me as subhuman. So it was everybody else, and then people who were not treating me right, and then there's dogs, and then there was me. I was treated like worse than animals. And so anybody that's born disabled can attest to this. You're just not treated like everybody else. And it has nothing to do with your disability. Sometimes they just think they're better than you, or they just disregard you. And we've come a long way since then. People with disabilities are treated a lot better, but back then it just wasn't the case. And so their doctors were trying to convince my mom to get rid of me and to give me to a white family. And they're like, well, Mexicans can't take care of disabled children. We're gonna give you to a white family. So my mom fought it, and she fought against the doctor, and the doctor left, and he took off to some other state. And so the nurses didn't know what happened. They're like, well, he just took off. Like he said, left without saying a word. But my mom knew what had happened. The nurses didn't know that they had an argument about this whole situation. And so that was kind of like that for the first few years of my life. My mom was just fighting for me over and over again for me to have basic rights for me to live and things of that nature. And so as I was growing up, I began to learn to hate. And the reason why I was learning to hate is because the way people were treating me. And when you're treated bad, man, I don't care how much of a saint you are, man, it gets to you after a while. And so I would fight back with my words, with my fists, and just the way how I was. I had a bad attitude and everything. And it just for For years it was like that. 10 plus years I was just fighting, and going nowhere. And I felt empty, and I felt like devastated. And it wasn't even about my disability. It was just the fact what came with it, and how I was being treated. And I would get molested by a nurse, and I would get just mistreated by doctors, and they would just not give me pills and not doing all this stuff because they think you can't feel it because they think you're mentally disabled. Just all the things you could think of, they would just do, and they give you no thought into any kind of procedure they gave to you. They just stuck you with a needle. They put a catheter in you. They did all kinds of stuff, and you'd be bleeding out, and they just, oh, sorry, my bad, I messed up, and that's just the way it was. So I became very cold-hearted, just very just like a rock, man. I couldn't feel nobody. I couldn't feel nothing. Like I just didn't like. I wasn't fun to be around with, you know. And I was a social burden. So that's what I felt like. So one day, I kind of get tired of it, you know. I get tired of the drugs. I became a drug addict at a young age, like probably about like, I would say I was less than 10 years old when I was a drug addict. I was probably like 5 years old, 6 years old, because they were just pumping up with us with drugs, because they just don't want to hear you cry, so they just give you a bunch of drugs. Like the drugs that rappers and all these people are addicted to now, we were addicted to back in the day, and they would be giving us narcotics and things like that. You could be morphine, and you just be on it stuff, and you just be high out of your mind, and be like that for weeks will go by, months will go by, and you just wouldn't think nothing of it. So I have a lot of my early memories of me just being on drugs and being addicted to drugs, and I would literally get all my pills and put them together and make like a cocktail of drugs, stuff that the nurses would teach us, and not realizing that, oh, we're drug addicts, you know. And so got tired of the drugs, I got tired of the pain, I got tired of everything, so I told myself, well, I'm gonna kill myself. And keep in mind, I was kind of grew up in church. I would go like once a month to like hear like just to make my dad happy, because my dad would get angry because I wouldn't go. So to make him happy and get off my back, I was like, all right, I'll go every now and then. And the thing about me just doing that, like, it was a good thing, because I would hear certain scriptures and certain things that would later on help me when I was trying to commit suicide. And one of the things that really helped was when I was in the hospital, the people from the church would visit me. So I would feel very grateful, because you don't really get visitors in the hospital. I knew a lot of kids that parents would leave them there, and they just leave them there and leave them to CPS, and the parents abandon them and things like that. So, or they would just leave them in the hospital, and things could happen to them. You know, they get raped or whatever, and I would see so many kids die and suffer and burn. Everything you can imagine, I saw it. So it was a lot for me at a young age, and so I was like, man, I'm tired of this. So I want to kill myself. I told myself, you know, I'm tired of fighting, tired of being strong. People see me as an example as as like, oh, look, he was supposed to be paralyzed, now he can walk and do all these things. But I never saw myself as a miracle growing up. I saw myself like, dang, I'm a mistake. That's what I am. And literally, I know that God doesn't make mistakes. God had a plan for me in my life. I just didn't realize at the time. So I go, all right, I got my pills. I was going to dump them, all that stuff. I was going to do everything. And I was like, man, I want to kill myself. So I got up and I went to the restroom, and I started doing all my medical procedures and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm going to kill myself anyways. So I was trying to figure out how I'm going to kill myself. My dad had a gun, and I was going to get it. I was going to shoot myself in the heart, because that's where the pain was at. But I go, nah, I don't want to be too messy for my family, you know? So I was thinking about getting some tarp, some plastic stuff, and just laying out there, so when I shot myself, the blood and everything would be easy to clean. You know, I'm thinking about these thoughts when to commit suicide, but at the same time I'm thinking about my family, you know? And I was like, well, I can hang myself. I go, man, that's traumatic for somebody to come into my room or in the restroom, and there I am, my body's like, you know, I hung myself. So I go, well, I could slit my wrists, you know, but I go, man, that's a lot of blood. So I'm going through the thought process of how to kill myself, and that's where I was at, you know, just no hope. And that's when I heard the voice of God intervene. He goes, hey, who are you? I go, what do you mean, who I am? Like I've never heard the voice a day in my life, you know? I'm like, who are you? But I was like, even though I never heard it, I recognize it as my creator. I go, who are you? Yeah, who are you to take a son away from his dad and his mom? I go, what do you mean? And he goes, who are you to take a little brother away from his older brother and sister? And you know, just questioning me, right? And he goes, who are you to take an older brother away from your little brother? You know, you're his hero, and he looks up to you, tells people about you. He goes, your brother and sister can protect you, but they couldn't protect you from yourself today, because you killed yourself. Your parents are going to feel devastated. And keep in mind, I was in a lot of pain. I experienced everything you could think of as far as pain goes. And that's when I felt another pain in my heart. And it dropped me to my knees. That's how painful it was. It dropped me to my knees. And I'm like, what is this, God? Like, I go, God, what is this pain? And he goes, that's the pain your family's gonna feel. He goes, that's the feeling of abandonment. They're gonna wake up and see you right there, and that's the pain they're gonna feel like that, and it's gonna be forever until the day they die. And I was like, man, I go, I would have wished that upon nobody. You know, I was thinking about my own pain, but not realizing the pain of my family. I go, man, this is even worse than any surgery I've been through, anything I've ever experienced in my life. This is like 10 times worse than anything like that. So I go, you know what, Lord, I'll believe in you and I'll have faith in you, but you gotta be there for me, because I just feel like you've never been there for me, and I just feel like nobody's ever been there for me. And that's when the scripture God had gave me, this one, which is Isaiah 40:31. And he goes, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not faint. And that, while I was trying to commit suicide, that kept on playing in the back of my head. I'm like, what is, I go, these words sound familiar. I go, but what are these? I didn't know what scripture at the time. And so I was like, all right, Lord, I believe in you. I accept you, and I want to follow you. And I gave my life to the Lord right there and then, because of the church I've been going to and stuff like that every now and then. I kind of more or less knew what to do. So I got up, got all my medical stuff ready, continued on with my day, and I walked to the nearest church, and I've been serving God ever since. Yeah, oh, we're going to do a medical procedure. The medical procedure was to put a catheter in, and then they go in there and play with the kids' private areas or shove it in there, and the kid be bleeding down there. And it was just like, oh, whatever, just give medicine. And they, I was 16. So I was 16, I had my surgery for the first time in a while. He was 13, and he wasn't feeling good, so obviously we both weren't feeling good. I knew we went because the shot had clogged up both of ours. And so there's a guy, the doctor was like, he felt like the devil. I go, I'm not. And then you touch my body. And my mom was right next to me, and she's like, yeah, I don't want this guy to do the surgery on me. And I went out there, and it's one of the things like you think of the past, like, oh, I should have said something. I should, whatever. I should have, like, man, I should have told my friend don't have the surgery, And but my friend went, talked to the guy. He had that surgery that night. He went and had it, and then the reason why I found out too was at the end of the year at the hospital, they have like a memorial of all the people that died. And a lot before the way I found out was like, he would ask, hey, what happened to so and so, and they're like, oh, they died of this, they died of that. That's how you found out. But after a while, they stopped telling us. They couldn't tell us, and so I'm like, all right. So I wasn't getting the information that way. So there was like a memorial I went to, and all the patients, and I saw the slide, and I saw, you would see your friends that you would hang out with. I'm like, oh man, he died. Oh, he died. And then I looked like, oh man, my best friend died. That's how I found out. Like, me and my dad went through the photos of the kids that died that year, and he was one of the people on the list. Because you didn't know whether next time you're going to see each other. At first I thought it was normal. I'm like, oh, I'll see him next month or whatever, the next doctor appointment. Keep in mind, like, one of the crazy things that they would do is that we would all see the doctors all like in one day. And that's kind of more or less how we hung out with each other. And they would kind of pit you guys against each other without knowing they were doing it. So there was a doctor that could do the surgery, but they could only take so many patients. Keep in mind, say they could only do like 10 operations because they're going to be there for a week or whatever, how long they're going to be there. There's like 100 of us. So that means all of the 100, only 10 of us are going to get the surgery. The rest are either going to die or you can continue suffering. So you have to wait for them. So for the whole next year or for whatever many months it was. So you sit there and lie to the doctors and the social workers and everybody, like, yeah, I'm your pain level would be like a 3, but you'd be like, oh, my pain level's a 10. Like, you would just straight up lie. Oh, I need this and that. Because if you didn't lie good enough, you weren't gonna get the surgery, and by the time they came next year, your pain would literally be at a 10. So you're dealing like a year of suffering, but you didn't want to suffer more than you had to, so you would lie and you did that knowing, like, man, one of your friends is probably gonna die because you lied. Like, that was kind of like, as you got older, you kind of put 2 and 2 together. You weren't thinking that. You knew there were some consequences of it, but you really weren't thinking fully. You were just trying to survive. Yeah. And so I would sit there and like, man, yeah, my pain level's 10. Yeah, suffering. I can't sleep at night. This and that. And I would get the surgery, and it wasn't every surgery, but there's some surgeries that were like that. That were all. It's like a lottery system. Not everybody's gonna get it. This whole group of people, maybe 10% of the people can get it. The rest of them, maybe next year, they might get another doctor that can come back and probably catch the rest of you, or who knows what. So even if like you weren't necessarily dying, like you do a year of suffering before the next year, they might get you. Like one surgery I didn't have, I was supposed to have like at 12. I got missed. I didn't have it until I was like 19 years old. I was supposed to have it like before I was 12 years old. So I was on the list for like 7 years or something like that. Where I was getting missed and missed and missed. And they're like, oh, we'll have the surgery now. I'm like, well, I'm already used to it. The way my face is already, kids already made fun of me and this and that. I go, all right, whatever though, let's just have the surgery. And they had the surgery and they fixed it and reconstructed my face. And so it was just years of that kind of nonsense. Okay, are they going to cover the medicine? Are they not? How much money they can make off of you? There's a lot of things with the insurance and a lot of political stuff. You gotta get approved by the doctor. Gotta get approved by the insurance. Gotta get approved by the social worker. Gotta get approved by the government. Gotta get approved by like who knows what. It'd be like 5 entities of the pharmacy.
The
county,
city.
yeah, the city, like everybody and their mama, you know. So it was just like I was just tripping on that stuff. Like, they're like, yeah, we can give it to you today, right now. We have it right here on the counter, but we have to call somebody to see if they can approve of it. And it was just like, oh, it was a bunch of, it was kind of just the way it was. Like, cause I never got a chance to feel sorry for myself because we're in a hospital full of people who are worse than the next one. Like, whatever you feel sorry about, like, say, man, my legs are hurting. You run to somebody in a wheelchair, I got no legs, or somebody that couldn't feel it. Like, man, I remember one time, one distinctly one was when I felt bad because my face was like, man, I'm ugly, I'm this and that. And this is like the one of very few times I actually found somebody that was older than me in the hospital. And so this guy, he was about like 18. I might have been like 13 or something like that. I was young. They had moved us to the burn unit. It was us and then the burn unit was right next to us. Not upstairs, but the elevator. Mm-hmm. Clicking the button. I'm looking down, I'm short, this guy's tall. And I look up, and he opens right, and I see him, and his whole face is burnt. Like, I was feeling bad about my face, but his whole face was, like, burnt. He could see, like, his eyes, but, this part down was, like, burned a little bit on top. I don't know how it burned, but I don't know if he could actually see or not, how much, but his eyes seemed to be kind of okay, but his face was really burned. And I was like, oh, man. I have no business feeling bad about my, I run into a patient or two, man, that really got to me, man. Like the one that kind of stuck out to me when I was a kid, and I had to get another brain surgery, or I was in there for something. I can't remember what it was. It was late at night, or it was like a close call that I thought I had to need another brain surgery, and I was in there, and there was a kid, like, he looked normal, man. He wasn't one of us. I knew that because we had a certain look. We had, like, he was kind of panicking. We were all kind of just in there normal, this is just part of the day. And the family it was a rich family. I remember them having money, and they were rich. And because there was some things that they had said, and just the way how they were dressed and stuff like that, all these people had money. So they went, I guess the kid went there, got the scans, like how we all got scans and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, he's got a brain tumor, he's gonna die. Like, they found out, like, he was, like, that was it. And his family had all the money in the world, but they were going to lose their son. I don't know if he ended up making it or not, but he was terminal. Because for some reason, that day, like, some days when you're in the hospital in the waiting room, it would be, like, intense. Because everybody's waiting and finding out if they're going to die or not. Imagine being in a room full of people, like, you're going to find out you're either going to have life and death surgery, or you're going to die, or you might go home and you're lucky it's
How much life and death surgeries you had?
I think almost all of them were like 19.
Wow.
Maybe probably a little under 19.
What was the most scariest of all the surgeries?
It had to probably be for me personally, or just as a whole?
As you personally?
Me personally, probably the one where I had like a 12-hour surgery.
Oh.
That one was crazy. That one was like 4 or 3 surgeries in one. That's why it had to be 12 hours. Wow. So I had like multiple doctors going in there and doing their thing. Because the thing about my surgeries is that, like, you had 3 of them, right? You had 3 separate ones. With me, they couldn't do that because then I'd be there every other so many months. So they would go in there like, all right, you're gonna have 2 surgeries in one, or 3 or 4, whatever how many surgeries you got done. Normally it'd be like 2 surgeries in one. So if I had to have surgery in one ear, I had it the other ear. So it would just go, all right, we're gonna do 2 in 1. I've had heart, brain, hips, surgery everywhere. So normally when I have brain surgery, they would give me heart surgery. So kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So that one I had like, I like to say, man, I lost count, but I think that was like about 3 or 4 surgeries in one, and that was like kind of the most. Because that one, it was just life changing. Because think about when you're disabled, you get kind of like stuck to your ways, and it sounds weird, but like it's like somebody that's been in prison their whole life. here's freedom, but they don't know life without prison. They got in there when they're 18. Now they're in their 50s, and life has just evolved and moved on. Society has changed, and so they're like, well, after the surgery, you'll be able to go to college, you'll be able to do all these things, live a normal life. And I didn't like. First of all, I didn't think I was gonna live to be that old. And I was like, man, I go, I don't know what that's like. It was kind of scary for me. Socially, it was scary for me. But I had the surgery, and I was bedridden for like 7 months, give or take. Um, I, I was just like, it was all bad. I was just in surgery for like 12 hours. I was in the hospital for like a week or two. When I remember waking up from surgery, I woke up towards the end of it. So I think that one I just wore out. So they were stitching me up, and I could hear them, the machines, and I could hear them like.
I think the same thing happened to me.
Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear it more than you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And if the pain, they feel it. It's like a pressure. It's like a pressure. Like, it's not like a stabbing or anything. It's like a pressure kind of pain. But I can feel them stitching me up, and I can hear them talking, having conversation and stuff like that. And I think I just woke up a little earlier than normal, and they were kind of going in there and doing what they're doing, and I felt that. But that's not really what gets to me. It's like the noise, the machine, the metal, that's what kind of gets me. More the sound gets me more than the pain. And so when I woke up, I was like, what the heck? I could feel the tape on my eyes, like they were taped on me, and then they pulled them off, and they're like, oh, he's awake, and they didn't tell my mom or nothing. And one of them I died. A couple of them I died, and they didn't tell me. They don't say nothing. I only found out because I went to like a certain appointment, and they're like, oh yeah, you died here and there, and they didn't tell us. So back then they just didn't really say nothing. They tell you nothing. Didn't care. I mean, I say they could say they care, but I say not. Why would you tell me that? You mean? Yeah, you see death, and then you see death in the hospital. Like you see ghosts in the hospital. Like I'll be right there waking up in the middle of the hospital, and I'll see all the kids that died in the past right there wanting to play. And they're like, "Oh, I want to play. You want to play ball?" And you in your mind, you know they're dead. Like you're like, you died 4 years ago, but they're still like, kind of like a ghost because it's dark. Right, you're in the hospital. It's kind of dark a little bit sometimes, and they're like that ghostly like parents, but they like their eyes were like red or some kind of color. You mean like this is like you're, because the thing is you're kind of drugged up too a little bit, but you know it's something much deeper. Like, man, this is like ghosts, or like there's kids that died in this hospital that are roaming around.
Yeah.
And you're just like looking at it like, what the heck? And they're like, I remember one specifically kind of like stuck out where I woke up. There must have been about 5 of them, and I remember all of them because they all died. We were all together and they all died. None of them made it, and I'm like, you guys all, none of you guys made it. You guys all died, you know. And they were still having like the day last time I saw them, which they still had like the cast, they still had the stuff, the surgical stuff on, and they were kind of like not solid, but they're a little bit faded a little bit, and they're like, hey, we want to play with you. Your mom, you know, like your mom's asleep, you know, come on, let's go play. You're in pain too, so sometimes you can't sleep, and so it's crazy on the hospital sometimes. I have my book Always With Me. You can buy it on Amazon, and then Disabled or Faithful. You can also buy that one. And then we have my audiobook coming out pretty soon. Always With Me.